So, Kelly, so I think we now have to talk about Hulu. No, no, not Hulu's Difficult People, but that's what it feels like. I think now we have to talk about this big movie, Bros, which was in the theaters with Billy Eichner. Um, First of all, your thoughts on the movie being in the theaters? Like, how huge is that?
I think it's fantastic. And I have, read a lot of like great reviews about it. And I haven't had a chance to personally see it, but it's definitely on my list of things to do. And I really just, I'm so happy that this story is being told. And I hope it's, not the last. I hope there's a lot more to come.
All right. After all that talking, and we talk. A lot of topics get Kelly hot and bothered. Virtually everything gets me hot and bothered. But quickly, well, I guess not quickly. I guess we owe a lot of, not owe, but want to spend a little bit of time on which feels like this monumental Billy Eichner having a gay romantic comedy. Even the words gay rom-com being a thing, a hashtag, seems so odd. In the movie Bros. Kelly, it feels like an interesting experience for us because our very podcast, Difficult Podcasters, was sort of, a funny take on Hulu's Difficult People, which we recapped every episode. So we've been really
Yeah.
supportive of this type of humor and Billy Eichner, what he did on Difficult People. But in my head, I said, wow, a theatrical release. This is like next level,
Absolutely. From a major studio.
a
Yeah.
major studio. People fell in love with him on YouTube or, Funny or Die or whatever it was in terms of Billy on the Streets. But then the movie was huge and his career's been huge. But to me, this felt like such a monumental thing. Never has there been something that felt so big, but yet I'm not a part of it whatsoever. But why am I so freaking emotional about it?
It is because it's a very emotional thing. I mean, me as a straight female that really, this doesn't really relate to me in the way that a lot of the movies I normally watch do. But the significance of it is so huge because it's just proving the change, the societal change and the worldwide acceptance that we're moving toward, that everyone's story deserves to be told. Everyone's. It doesn't always just have to be a heterosexual relationship at the forefront or at the core of any story. That no matter what your beliefs are, your religious beliefs or what, your sexual orientation or anything like that, everyone deserves to have their story told. And I love that this is in theaters in such a big way and only in theaters, which is a big thing nowadays.
Yeah, luckily it's only in theaters because I probably would have watched it a second time already. I actually plan to go back to the theater and watch it again. It's just such a, like I said, I feel like I'm such a talker every episode, and yet here, something that I would be very into topical wise, I'm like, I can't get the words out based on like a little bit of an
But that's
emotion.
how powerful that this is for you. And I
Yeah.
love that. When something can stump you in that way, you know that it's really evoked a certain emotion in you. And this is it's such a great thing. And I really I want, talk to me, tell me about it. How did it make you feel going in there and watching this whole story unfold?
I love your
Tell
Barbara
me.
Walters interviews. Diane Sawyer, talk to me.
I want to make you cry. Tell me about it.
But what a sap I am. I'm just the viewer and I'm making it all about me. But it
No,
really,
but it is. I want to know your experience. Tell me.
I watched this with a family member and they were like, well, damn, he's a podcaster. He's grumpy. He's gay. Like everything. There was I mean, he was rich and I'm not rich, but there was a lot of things that just, I'm like, oh my God, it's just, and he was in his 40s. And that to me was even important because
Yes.
you and I always talk about like, everything is geared towards 25-year-olds or whatever. So even when we saw Neil Patrick Harris do Uncoupled on Netflix, that was even big because it's
absolutely.
Let's start giving these stories of people in our age bracket. Kelly and I, though we look so young, we're dipping and doing in our 40s. So even that made a lot of sense. I'll go with the negative first. The only negative thing is that I wish more people would have showed up, for the movie in the theatrical release, because it is an important thing. It's not something you could just sit on. It was an important weekend. And I wish more people showed up. And I know that the girls showed up, the gays showed up. Yes. And the allies showed up and all that. But I just wish there was somewhere in the people who don't get this lifestyle in the world and this type of world, or even New York City for that matter. I
Mhm.
wish the people in these, red states or whatever, took it upon themselves to say, let me just try it. Let me just see if, what this is. Obviously, it's a big theatrical release, so it's going to have mass appeal. It clearly wasn't a movie just made for the gay community, the
Right.
LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
It was made for everybody. And it was a little bit of like those differences, how we're so the same and we're so different. Like, it was actually perfect in that way.
Mhm.
So that's the part that like disappoints me a little bit. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to refer to box office numbers or nothing. I just feel like, wow, what a moment this could have been had the box office numbers been huge. And I feel a little bit as a viewer like
Mhm.
the wind let out of the sail. Is that the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
I understand, yeah, what you're
here
saying.
we get the
But
theatrical release.
also,
Yeah.
don't take it too much to heart, even though I understand how difficult that is. It's something new. It's something new for our society as a whole, and it's such a great first step in the right direction, which is unfortunate that it's taken us this long to even do that, but here we are. And there's been a lot of really great reviews, which are hard to come by. I mean, the New York Times, like all of these really reputable media outlets that are just praising the story and talking about how you can't even see sexual orientation in it, that it is a story that you root for, characters that you root for, a love story you want to see. And I feel like conversation within itself is so important, and hopefully that the viewers and the numbers will follow that.
One thing I thought was really great was Luke McFarlane was the other lead.
And I
You
adore him.
He's been in every Hallmark
I
movie.
and I'm a Hallmark nut. I
You
love him.
are. The two things that don't make sense about Kelly, because she's a rough one. But you love Halloween and you love Christmas. Like, you're very, sometimes like, Kelly's tough as shit, but you're very soft too.
Yeah.
You have range.
Mhm.
So Luke McFarlane is in it, and it's his character was actually very instrumental, I thought, in the movie, because it did show how some guys, though they're out, for many years, there's no problem with it, but there's a couple things that he's rigid and tied into within, like how you grow up and masculinity and how you act and react around your family. I mean, there's a scene where he sadly tells Billy Eichner's character to kind of tone it down. That's like the last thing you want to hear,
Right.
because then you start saying, who's to say I've even turned it up, bitch? I'm gonna start getting sassy if that's what you want. And
Right.
I
Right.
felt so much of that. You know what I mean? It's this constant, like, looking in the mirror, knowing and loving who you are. Like, I have no days in my life ever. I think I won the lottery. Being a gay man is the lottery. However, we've won the lottery in a heteronormative world. And so
Mhm.
much of the movie I felt like gave that. They had this really beautiful scene. And I won't say like all of the things, because you want to, of course, watch it. But one of the beautiful scenes is just talking about assessing confidence and what that really means. And sometimes your confidence is based on almost like a last resort, because you've stopped believing in anyone else. You have to believe in yourself only. And it's a scene that's so beautiful. It's in Provincetown, and it's just the two of them on the beach, and it's really, really cute. And when I tell you that we talk about romantic comedies all the time here, you
Yeah.
and I have done a recap on My Best Friend's Wedding. Like, we're the rom-com recappers for the most part. We love it. And I always say, Kelly, you've heard this before, romance I like, but I love flirty energy. And there was
Oh
some
yeah.
parts in this movie that were very that. And I thought it was also good education too, for like, I went with the family member, like I said, who, could now see all the things, but still it be in a funny way. Was there four naked bodies, hooking up? Yes, but there was also the jokes that go behind that, or
Mhm.
why even that is, the terms of like, I sometimes we talk, gay men will talk more openly sexually sometimes, but that's based on the lifestyle that you're given. In
Right.
my age bracket, yes, as a kid, you weren't going to grow up and say, you could get married. That wasn't a thing that was even available. So you start navigating in the ways that are available, and sometimes owning your sexual identity and having pride in that does make a lot of sense. But I just thought it was done funny, because a lot of the scenes were as awkward as, I guess, like Judd Apatow and Nicholas Stoller were a part of this film, and they've done all those really funny rom-coms
Yeah.
already. And so you think
Mhm.
about it, like those movies, like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, they've had all the nasty, like, oops, there's a dick in the screen, like, so why couldn't we see that type of stuff with this movie? And Billy did a really good job at making it funny. It's funny, I couldn't talk about it at the beginning. Like I was saying, I was really like speechless, but
Mhm.
now I'm kind of like really into it. I thought it was another good aspect is that they were able to break down because the character, he was working for an organization for doing a museum, for an LGBTQ museum. And what was great about that, and I guess people don't realize this, within the community there's so much like not infighting but just like differences. And
Mhm.
who I saw the movie with reacted as like, oh wow, even within there's just all of these different bits of understanding that everyone's trying to have, hey, please understand my part of it, or I didn't realize that about you. And so it's not just a wash off like LGBTQ. They're all different within, and it showed that gay guys are not a monolith. Same with everything, the G, the B, the T, the Q, the I, the A, nobody's a monolith. And I just thought that was so great. It made me really happy. Did
But
not
did you
have as
feel? Can I ask a question real quick? Sorry, I don't want to mess.
please,
I don't want to mess with your flow. But
please.
did you feel that when you were watching it that you were watching something similar to a This Is 40 or My Best Friend's Wedding? Or I mean, did you feel it had all the elements that you normally see in a rom com? Or I mean, could you really tell a difference? Like if you weren't focused on it being like a gay rom com, would it matter, or would it just have been like a great romantic comedy?
Well, that's the great thing is for me, it didn't feel like a gay rom com because it
Hmm.
literally is stuff that I will go through in life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's only being in the audience and seeing who's, you never know who you're sitting next to,
Right.
and the people that are watching it, you're wondering like how much do they know about little bits of our story. um but for them, that's a great education. And I know it sounds weird to
Hmm.
be like educating the straights, but it was done in a way by them making it LGBTQ museum as his, it wasn't his job, but it was well, I guess it was like his job.
Hmm.
It offered a lot of knowledge, which I know all of that knowledge. You as an ally know all that knowledge, but not the person next door who's like, had a hiccup over this type of stuff for years and years and years. They now could look at it as like, oh wow, okay, so they're not the same, but they're not that different either. Like, and
Yeah.
that's all you really wanted. And the cast was really great. T.S. Madison was in it. Miss Lawrence, who's one of my favorites. Miss Lawrence was fantastic in a TV show on Fox called Star. I would love to see Miss Lawrence go on and on. Though Miss Lawrence and T.S. Madison had smaller roles, still amazing. Luke
Hmm.
McFarlane, though, can we just talk about
I
how
mean,
beautiful?
he is a beautiful man. I
Mhm, mhm,
adore
mhm,
him,
mhm, mhm.
and he is such a scene stealer. Like he just is. He's got such a charming way about like his presence, and I love him. Like I've seen every single Hallmark movie he's ever been in, and I'm super excited to see this. I'm bummed I didn't get to make it out yesterday, but I really it's I've got tickets for today, so I'm excited to see it.
And as I said, it's a big challenge because how do you do a movie that suffices the community? Because the community, like, you want it to be completely represented the best that it can, but it can't represent everybody.
No,
So you
yeah.
have these shady bitches that are going online and are like, oh, what did Billy, what does he think? As if he's supposed to represent every single person. He did the best that he could, and I mean, I couldn't imagine having to do a piece of work um where your like target demographic, let's say like in radio, like we've done
Mhm.
before, or even in podcasting, our target demographic is this, but then wait, you have to also worry about this audience too. That is not an easy thing. And he
No.
managed to weave it really together. But there are some cute scenes that you would be like, oh my god, flirty energy is amazing. You won't stop looking at Luke McFarlane's chest, because I mean it was like chiseled to all the high heaven. And his character was a little like tough to grasp at the beginning, because his character was the one who did what we do. I don't know if you do this, but it's easier to disengage with something real and just go
Oh,
run over
absolutely.
to this other one, or in his case, there's a three-way going on over here, and just kind of like never be present. And what's good is Billy Eichner's character Bobby called him out on it. He's like, so you went to go, I don't know if he said fuck, you went to go fuck them, but when you felt lonely and you were away from all of the excitement, you called me. So you had a physical emotional connection with me, but you don't want to like really experience and explore that. And I just was like really into it. I was like, this is what I've done. This is what people have done to me, where I'm just
Mhm.
like, I thought we got along great, but then, no one wants to really feel anything. And as
Yeah. No,
gay,
I can relate to that for sure, and I'm glad that it's just so exciting from my point of view to know that this exists, especially for something, like I would love to, I'm trying to get my mom to go see this with me because like I love my mom, but my mom is very Catholic. So there's a lot of the stuff that she has a hard time with. And I think this is, but one thing that we've always kind of bonded over is movies. And I think this can show her a different side of what, she deems to be appropriate and whatnot. And, and don't get me wrong, like by any means, my mom is like, non-inclusive and is, horrible to people or anything like that. But she does have her kind of like, way, well,
Well,
the Bible says
generationally,
this and like all
yeah,
that. Right. But,
yeah,
she's always open to being educated about things. And I love that this is something I can show her and we can, and it'll push the limit and be in such a funny way where she'd just be like, oh, I can't believe you had me watch that stuff. These guys are doing what? But I feel like she would be receptive to that. And I think that it's just such a great thing and such a good step forward. And I loved watching Billy and the way that the character was developed on Difficult People because you didn't really deal with a gay straight thing. Like they were just people.
yeah. It was just his
You didn't
nerves.
divide the world.
It was his nerves on dating the guy. Like, am I
Yeah.
doing the right move? Am I this, that? They didn't spend time on like, oh, he's wow, you came out like that wasn't even an issue.
No,
This was like
no.
post all that, and that's the beautiful part of life.
That's
When
the
I
part that
talk
I
to you,
love. Yeah, that I love so much about it. Sorry, like that's what I love so much about it is that it doesn't divide the world. And in a lot
Mhm.
of movies that you see, you've got like the token, this person or the token that person. And we talked about this when we were able to interview Julie about the series that I appreciated so much just from my perspective on how they were able to just make this a world where everyone just was. And it's the same that
Mhm.
Schitt's Creek was able to do. Like you didn't single out like there's a whole like there's a different world for these people, there's a different world for that people. It's just one world. And
Yeah,
I love that. So I'm excited to see, and I'm sure that translates into this movie. Does you can speak better to that since you've already seen it, but
it's like it's better than it gets credit for. And again, if any shady queens out here want to be like, oh, it didn't represent this and that, and I know progress is there, but we could, we'd love to have more progress. I get all that. I would love to see Miss Lawrence in the lead character for sure. But it's still a great step, and it was still so funny, and it was still giving a lot to me. I
Mhm.
guess I felt like the movie was made for me. I'm like,
Well, it was. That's the
I've
thing
lived
is
in
it
New York.
was.
I'm in my 40s. You know,
But
I've
it's
been
the
in
way
that
that
situation.
it's the way I think like Sex and the City was made for me, like the original.
Right,
Let's not even
right.
talk about it just like that. But the original, like the series, the way that the series goes and all that, because you look at yourself and you're able to see such similarities. I mean, I look at a lot of characters and that is where my genuine love for filmmaking and storytelling comes from, is because it's a way to get lost in these worlds and help therapeutically go through emotions that I go through and seeing different perspectives and not feeling so alone with it. So I can only imagine like how amazing this was for you for, the first one of, the first time to see a major motion picture about something that you can absolutely
Yeah.
100% personally relate to.
And there's so many things that have been out before, but they're all, not on
But
not on the scale of a
right, not on the
major
scale. It's not
studio film.
the main thing. You have the
Yeah.
side stories, and you have, like the dealing with it in different ways. Like, there was the object of my affection where it was a different kind of relationship, like
Yeah.
the straight person trying to deal with the gay, like all that. So it's yes, these stories have somewhat been told a bit, but
Mm,
this is just on such a different level and so much more in depth for it
yeah.
that's just what makes it so special.
Did we already talk about Object of My Affection on this podcast yet? How I
No,
was
we
telling
haven't.
you, but I told you though. We texted
You
about
two,
it. I
yes,
thought
we talked about
where
it.
I
Yeah.
was saying how or on the phone, I was saying how when I was growing up, this was years before I could get any mental clarity on all this.
Mhm.
But seeing Object of My Affection in that kissing scene, I painted in my head that it was this big, first of all, long kiss, and like it felt like they walked longer too. Like it was like a longer. It was just literally down from the brownstone, I think, or whatever the
Yeah.
case. But it felt more epic, and it was. Then I watched it just recently. I was like, oh, that was the daintiest little kiss. They barely touched. It would give them a high five is more intimate. But what is interesting about that is when you are assessing and finding yourself, you assess. There's a joke that is about. We'll say. We'll date for 3 months and then we'll assess later. But when you are assessing yourself, and that's all you can grab from, and you got to make a decision right there in the Paul Rudd character, if this is a yes or no, if this is what your life is about. There's so little, there's not even much dialogue, other than, he was openly gay, Paul Rudd's character in that movie, but there wasn't a lot of dialogue to you being a younger teenager and saying, is this maybe what I'll, is this my life when I grow up?
Right.
So that's why this movie made a lot of sense. Like, they did some really good things in terms of, and I don't want to give all the movie away. One of the things, and why I want to see it again, I'll probably go see it on Wednesday, Kelly, is because, oh my God, I get so happy about the movie, is I watched too many interviews. So I felt like a couple things were going on. I felt like I knew a lot of what was going on, a lot of teases, and I knew we were going to podcast immediately about this, and it was going to be a big, talking point, because we love Billy Eichner and difficult people, and it's your kind of humor for sure. And so I was like, something would happen, I'm like, I got to tell Kelly this. And it's like, I want to go back and watch it where I'm just like in the movie by myself. And truth be told, I know this sounds shady. Tell me if you think it sounds shady. I was with a family member who was lovely, but support is one thing, but to stuff and hear stuff, and it's a R-rated movie.
Right.
I did feel parts of like, don't talk to me during the movie.
I'm telling you, my favorite thing to do is go to movies by myself. And every time I go with someone else, I always regret it, like, instantly.
And it wasn't personal.
Unless I'm going to movies with you or with someone I know just is like really into it as much as I am, great. But if not, my favorite thing to do on a Saturday morning is usually, like, when I had this time on Saturdays, was I would go to the very first showing at the AMC in Burbank, and it would be like the 10 a.m. show that I would go to by myself, and I would be one of like 3 people in the movie theater, and it was my favorite thing. And I would just see whatever movie I wanted, and I'd have my horrible like concession stand snacks, and it was like the best experience. And that's what I'm going to do tonight, to go see this movie by myself. But I love that there's that opportunity, and I'm so excited for everyone involved in this movie, because it's we talk about so many things, and with the Emmys and the Oscars and all of this, and we celebrate so many different things, and hopefully the more that this gets talked about, and and it's just one weekend, and it's really sad that so much pressure is put on opening weekend, but hopefully this will just become one of those cult classics that everyone will always like quote and talk about, and we'll have to get Rating Row to do some quote shirts about it, and just really become these beloved characters that are like the Clueless characters and all these other characters that we quote and we mention all the time. Like, that's what I'm hoping and pushing for this movie, is that we can it just gets in the norm of that rotation of all these cult classics that we constantly talk about, and then more and more people will see it.
It very well may be like a slow burn, but I think enough people liked it. Even doing our podcast, I don't get shy over any of the shit we do. However, talking about this, putting my public opinion on this movie, knowing it could be torn up and down, sideways, left and right, whether people love it or hate it. I just was like, I was feeling very like, okay, Kelly and I got to get this right in terms of, and we're not recapping it. I'm not giving a review. I'm not giving it a grade or anything like that. I'm just saying I watched it once, and I wanted to talk to Kelly the whole time. And, did you see that? But I'm going to see it again, because I want like just another sit through process. I mean, the scenes were so cute. And, when I was in New York City, like all my straight friends, all my roommates happened to be straight guys, but we had like the greatest of conversations, and they would always trip out over, and in fact, I should encourage them to go watch this. I would always encourage them, or not encourage them, but I would tell them some of the nuances of gay guys, and how just even how we have sex, it's different, and there was just like some really cute shit that just reminded me of just, wow, like people could kind of see that it's not just the nasty, the the hooking up. It is a bit romantic, even if it's like sometimes I used to say this, Kelly, I wish I could cuddle without having sex. Like I only have the sex for the sake of when we're
For the
done,
cuddling.
we could cuddle and talk for like the whole afternoon or the evening. Like that's my shit. I love that. And there was just this really cute part where they were cuddling and just talking. And I know I'm such a wuss. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Are you laughing at me?
No,
She's laughing at
I'm
me.
laughing because I'm the opposite. Like I have sex, I don't have to cuddle.
Yeah. See, Kellie got the bigger dick than me every episode. Every fucking episode. And this is why our show works. But no, I was a softie with that. I was like feeling
No,
the
but
emotion.
that's
Yeah.
cute. Like I
When
like
you
that.
roll over and either you put him on your shoulder, on your chest, or you do this,
Yeah.
do that to him, and just having those like epic conversations. Now, sometimes those conversations are good, and then you walk out the door and you never see him again. Either that happens too. But it left me with a lot of optimism because the character was grumpy. Bobby was grumpy, and he was in his 40s. I was like, I can relate. I wasn't the character by no means, but there was a lot of I
Yeah.
podcast. I'm never
A
happy
lot of
per se.
parallels. Lots of
Yeah,
parallels
and he was
going on.
really loving, which is how I am too. So I just encourage everyone to see it, give it a shot. It's a hard task. I mean, I guess what Billy Eichner was saying was that this Nicholas Stoller brought it to him like, hey, we want to do something, and Billy was responsible for writing something that made sense. And I just can't imagine that task. You're gonna
Oh
make
yeah.
you're gonna make a movie that's gonna make the gay LGBTQ community happy because we're pretty strict on our representation. Like we want it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We don't and there was a little bit of that sassiness in the movie where it's like I'm gonna do a rom-com so the straight guys could feel happy. Like why do we care about them? And that's kind of like how you sometimes feel because you have to always defend your community. And so the way he managed to push and pull that, and I would like to think that people saw it who aren't really familiar with I mean, it's not a big deal. That's what's crazy, but I guess in some small cities it is. So,
Yeah. I mean,
there's joy and pain
sometimes it is.
with my
Yeah.
review here, but I liked it, and I think you would like it, and I think it is just there was a when Harry Met Sally similarity to like how things were with a
Mhm.
nice straight couple, and then how things are with the gay guys, and one guy showing his asshole. Like it was
Wow.
just very very. I mean, not no, he was taking a photo. He was taking a photo. Wasn't that deep, but not that deep. Um, Kellie, I'm running out of words. I think that's it for our bros recap, but I hope that people go see it. And I hope that honestly, I always say you could comment on our podcast or whatever, but just we're doing our best here. This one really choked me up a little bit. I really caught emotions. And by the way, if there is a second sequel, we should be in it for sure. Now I know
I mean,
we joked about it, but he's a podcaster in the movie. I'm sure in the movie he needs a nemesis, like a grumpy 40-year-old. I'm
I
the
mean,
one.
let's float the idea now. While they're thinking of
But it was
sequel
good. It
options.
was good for
But
progress. Like you said, there's going to be a movie with Jim Parsons coming out in December.
mhm.
And that's another, gay love story. So it might be the beginning of a lot of
I
things. It
mean,
just might take some
Hallmark's
time.
even doing it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
they're really kind of like a lot of people are getting hip to the inclusivity. And the thing is it shouldn't even be a thing. Like
Well,
it really
I want you
shouldn't.
to see it, and then we'll come back maybe another
Yeah.
episode. There was a little thing of like, well, at what age do you teach? And not because one side, Florida, they get
Mhm.
really into oh, this means this and an agenda. But at what age do you kind of educate the kids that people are just different, not even like an agenda. And
Mhm.
that part of the movie was done really really well because nobody has a same answer. Everyone feels different things. Some people
Yeah.
think it should never be taught, but then other people are like, well, the reason these kids are getting bullied and are committing suicide is because there's such an open society for calling them the F word, and it's still holding weight.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just funny, it was also like some good stuff up in there if you really paid attention. So I was into it. Bros, the movie, theatrical release. It's so crazy to even say that, to have a gay rom-com, but Billy Eichner hit a home run with this. I hope he's happy. Obviously you want the numbers to be bigger, but I hope he's happy with the work that he did.
Mhm.
And it's Billy Eichner. His career has not stalled at all. So
No, it
hopefully
hasn't.
this gets its due, but if it doesn't, hopefully something else, he navigates into something that's really great because we love watching his work. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I hope, I think it's going to be one of those that, definitely continues to grow and the audience continues to grow for it, like as time goes on. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. But I'm definitely excited to see it. Everyone needs to go see it.
And if there is a sequel, I'm giving myself another job, Kelly.
Yeah.
I want you and I to be responsible for casting, because I
Oh
want
my
to
gosh.
cast. I want to cast the next lead. I want to cast
Let's
who
do
else
like
is
our casting wish list and like what our like the story concept would be.
Yeah, we'll revisit this on our Patreon that we don't have. But this was fun.
We're just making up all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Do you want to do one more topic? We
Well, I want to talk about, yes, I want to talk about that, because this and it goes into the whole relationships and all this. We've been talking about bros. Let's talk about some babes, some older babes that are kicking it with some youngins.
She's 48 years old, and you're right. The name of our episode today is Bros and Babes, because we're talking about Billy Eichner's Bros movie, and we named it Babes because Larsa Pippen, of course, is a gorgeous woman. We're not using the word babes as a negative at all. But my question to you, and the reason we also brought this up, and we're wrapping up the show here in a second, is I've noticed that Kelly has really come alive when we talk about relationships. You would see our last couple of episodes as we've now had a revamp with our show. All of a sudden, like, Kelly has really big opinions on this, and so I wanted to know what you think. We're not doing the. You could go to another podcast for the play-by-play, up to date, this, and this. We're just generally talking about the topic. Larsa Pippen, who is a single lady. She's not with Scottie Pippen anymore.